Hey, welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. My name is Roy, as usual, and today we are talking about Gutenberg business and things like that. So it should be a pretty good episode. I'm gonna go ahead and start with introductions.
Hey everybody, I'm Joe Casabona. I am a developer, course creator, and podcaster in the WordPress space. I'm here mostly because I just recently launched a course called An Introduction to Gutenberg that teaches people how to use Gutenberg. So I'm very excited about the new software and how it's going to affect people in the WordPress ecosystem.
Cool. And James.
This is James Tryon. I'm founder of Easily Amused and lead ambassador of Wapoos. I'm here as well because Roy and I and a handful of other people have been working on a course for Gutenberg for WordPress.org to help all developers get up to speed on how to use Gutenberg. So,
Yeah, really excited about that. Cool. So just want to preface this whole conversation with anyone that's listening when this goes out or watching on YouTube. Gutenberg at this stage or at this moment in time is still a feature plugin. And if you're watching, once it's not, we're talking about it right now when it's a feature plugin. So before it's put into core, obviously it's still in development, which means that something might change in the course of the next few months. From I think it's right now we're talking in January. It's slated to come out in April, but who knows? Things might change for that. Just keep in mind that we're talking about Gutenberg as it is here today in January, but it might change. So another thing, as we get into this conversation, a lot of conversations have already been had, recorded about using Gutenberg and what it is. Do you want to give us like a elevator pitch on Gutenberg just so we can get it out of the way in case someone is like, I don't know what Gutenberg is at all?
Yeah, so Gutenberg is a impending change to WordPress 5.0, which is slated for April or so, that will change the way we create content in the editor. So right now, the editor is basically a wall of text and images that we can format. Gutenberg is going to convert that editor experience to basically blocks of content. So you can have a text block or an image block or like a form block. And then you can kind of build these rich layouts within the WordPress editor.
It's really just a new editing experience for your content. It basically takes what we know kind of today, non-Gutenberg as editor page, and reinvents the whole page. So while WordPress is about to turn 15, it definitely was in need of an overhaul. It has some minor updates through the years, obviously, but this is kind of like a from the ground up, fresh rebuild of the edit screen, or like the edit content screen. So good for WordPress, definitely needed. What I want to focus more of our attention on today is not necessarily how to use it and what it is, but the business aspects. So first, let's talk about businesses that currently exist in the WordPress or with WordPress and have all their content, whether they're using it as a blog or, blog plus marketing, whatever it might be, how it might affect them. So James, I don't know, do you have any experience with turning Gutenberg on a site that already has an established, amount of content on it?
yeah, I have a little bit, like in development only. So to be clear, right now, like Joe said, Gutenberg is really just for editing content. In the long run, that will probably change, but as of right now, it really is just the content area. If anyone understands WordPress, like literally the content is the area that we're editing right now with Gutenberg. So if your content doesn't use shortcodes, if it doesn't use mostly shortcodes or any type of custom meta in fields, then technically you're fine. If you just have a bunch of blogs, so they happen to have some inline content like images and stuff, technically you're fine. It's the markup shortcodes that are going to cause a problem. But when I say problem, realistically, if you turn Gutenberg on and you don't edit anything, nothing will look different either. So just turning Gutenberg on will not necessarily break your content. It's when you start trying to edit something that has a lot of custom shortcodes or embeds, then you start having a little bit of a problem. But technically, there is shortcode blocks. You can convert that over. They are working on shortcode columns that will help with layout that you can then have nested blocks in the future. But if we're talking about just today, that feature isn't quite ready. But for the most part, it's really not as bad as everyone thinks. Now, if it does have a problem, if there is a lot of custom inputs, there is a chance that the Gutenberg editor might not work. Now, they said during the state of the word, don't worry about what happens now, this is still evolving, it'll be different when it launches. But right now, if there's an area that doesn't quite work in Gutenberg, it will revert back to the classic editor view. So that's, if something does break or something does trigger an error, it does revert back to the classic view. Now, if you have a problem with Gutenberg, you can install the classic editor plugin. And now a lot of people are doing this approach where they're using the classic editor plugin on their old posts, and anything new without shortcodes moving forward, they're using Gutenberg for. So you can start playing with it now. But again, I don't want to scare people. It's not like it's going to break anything. It's not going to destroy your site unless you're pretty heavily shortcode based, and then they have tools for that.
So basically, I was looking at that plugin last night because you linked to it during WP Blab. So there's a plugin that exists that basically has the editor as it is today, kind of in a plugin, and it allows you to edit any post with that editor if you have Gutenberg on. Correct?
Yeah, it gives you the current look. They call it classic editor.
Does it default? Do you know if it defaults to that, or is it something like again, this is all education, but is it something that if I turn on Gutenberg and this plugin, I have to physically know, okay, don't click on edit, click on the other button?
That I would have to check on because I'm not sure how that'll work once it moves to core.
Yeah, so right now, if you have the Gutenberg plugin, right, the only way to get Gutenberg today on WordPress 4.9.x is to get the Gutenberg plugin. That comes with a classic editor link kind of baked into the editor options, right? If you upgrade to, on one of my local builds, I've upgraded to WordPress 5.0, like whatever the nightly is. So it should have Gutenberg baked in at this point. If you get the classic editor plugin, there will be settings on the writing under settings writing, where you could say always use the classic editor or give me the choice. So that will be the case once Gutenberg hits like production level release. So probably like the first WordPress 5.0 release candidate, I'm guessing. That's when that experience will change if you're doing testing for the latest version of WordPress.
Okay, so my biggest concern from where I work is that we have sites that have thousands upon thousands of posts of content, and I knew that activating Gutenberg or upgrading to 5.0 wasn't going to necessarily all of a sudden bring the site tumbling to its knees, but educating the content team in what Gutenberg is, how to use it, as well as being able to edit existing posts, when there are issues with something that's already out there. It'll be good to have that fallback. So I'm going to try to remember to put a link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube for the I don't know what the official name for it is, but it's the Gutenberg
classic editor.
Classic
yeah,
editor.
it's just called yeah.
I did buy some domains called Gluten Free, and they're redirecting to the classic editor as a joke.
All right.
I mean, they don't do anything, and I don't own the plugin. I just thought it was funny that they have it go gluten free, gluten free.
Fantastic.
Glutenfree.com. That's where you're going to find the plugin.
It redirects the classic editor.
Cool. So I think that was another main concern from both the people that I've talked to who are part of Core and Automatic is really you shouldn't fear about Gutenberg. If you already have a site with a lot of content, don't dread the inevitable 5.0 release. It's not going to take down your site, but you need to learn about what Gutenberg is and really like the potential benefits you're going to get from it. There's it's a different experience altogether for writing content, but it's way more modular in writing content. It allows you to really, I don't want to say page builder, but it's almost page builder-esque, where you have kind of more control over the layout and where everything's going.
Yeah, the term that's being thrown around in the official documentation is rich layouts, right? So you can it's not necessarily a page builder at present. At the time of this recording, you can do like columns, for example. You have like a text column block, but that's just plain text and it kind of automatically resizes. So you're not going to get things like, well, insert name of favorite page builder here, but you can create richer content. I think one of the most powerful things as of Gutenberg today is the reusable blocks. You can create this content that then you can then reuse on however many pages and posts you want, and you can make it so that you change it once and changes everywhere. That's something that you don't get from the classic editor, right? You have to copy and paste or get the duplicate page post plugin to do that stuff, but that'll come baked right into Gutenberg.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm really looking forward to that. Just being able to have like a block that I can just reuse. Again, modular is the way to go. I am kind of concerned for how that's going to be used in practice, though, because even with like the duplicate post or page plugin, I've seen WordPress installs that are like, copy number 752 of this page, and I'm just like, okay, you're obviously abusing this little thing you have going on right here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be negative, but I even asked Matt Mullenweg this on Monday at our meetup. He happened to be in Orlando, but I brought it up a couple times because I'm concerned with block bloat, and everyone's like, "Well, what's new? You don't got to think about that. That's several years down the road." But I'm really concerned with some clients. I'll put it this way: every time I go to check out, it's like, "Do you want to use this credit card on file?" I'm like, I don't know what credit card that is. I'm going to make a new one and make sure I have the right one. So I could just see people like building hundreds or thousands of these reusable blocks, not knowing how to edit them or how to save them or which ones they've already made. They just keep making more. Now, that isn't necessarily a problem. It's not going to slow it down, but I do see it getting pretty cluttered in your own custom reusable block section after a year or two of let's say 4 or 5 authors writing content. I would like to. Do you guys have an opinion on block bloat if that happens, or what will happen 2 or 3 years down the road with all these reusable blocks?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that now with like plugin bloat, right? I mean, man, I audited a site recently that had Elementor, Divi, and Beaver Builder all installed. It had Gravity Forms and Ninja Forms installed. So I mean, I think it comes down to educating people, right? Like I told this person, like, your site is crazy bloated because you have all these things and you need one or none, like one or fewer of these. As far as like block bloat goes, I kind of I like to imagine WordPress sites as like cars, right? Like you have a car manufacturer and then you let somebody buys it and they drive it off the lot. From that point on, they can do whatever they want with their car. Like they can give it one of those stupid spoilers. Sorry if you guys have a spoiler on your car, as long as it's not like 4 feet high. Like they could do that. And, you could say like that shouldn't happen, but it's ultimately their site. So I think the best that we can do is educate content teams and say like, hey, keep your blocks tight, audit them from time to time. Dibs on putting that on a t-shirt. And I mean, it's extra hard now, right? Because there's no way to delete custom blocks in Gutenberg today, like as the plugin exists today. That said, it's gonna be possible by the time it hits production. But like I have some block bloat right now just because I'm making courses and I want to show people how to make reusable blocks, and I mess up, and there's no way for me to get rid of those blocks. So,
yeah, I'm super concerned from just because, we don't have necessarily 5 authors. We have like 50 authors or whatever. Like, and yeah, obviously education is going to be the most important. But having an intuitive interface and intuitive app, right? That's really what you want to get to. Where the point where, WordPress in itself today, without Gutenberg, is so loved because it's so intuitive. Like you can just forget creating the website, but like once the website's launched, it's really easy to create a new piece of content or edit a piece of content. It's just intuitive. You don't need necessarily that much training. You need training to like get advanced at it. Right. And that's the one thing I do fear is that Gutenberg, from a user point of view, to even be like mediocre at using Gutenberg, you need education, which I don't know. I fear what it'll mean for certain sites. Obviously, this is not the case for every site, but there are going to be sites out there where, again, you're definitely going to get block bloat. And it's inevitable. And as you said, it is like a car. It's up to the user to, like, again, as you said, it's up to the person who manages the site to install 55,000 plugins, which today they can do. And it could be really dumb, but that's just how WordPress is, and that's why we love it. It's both ridiculously easy for us, people who know what they're doing, and ridiculously easy for people who don't know what they're doing.
Right. Now, I haven't looked at the permissions API, but I suspect there's probably a permission for create custom blocks. So I can certainly see a world where on the enterprise scale, especially, you use something like, custom user permissions or whatever that plugin's called to lock down creating custom blocks to only editors or only admins or whatever.
One other question I wanted to ask to you guys was for blocks, right? Like if a user's coming in and they start liking the block, they like Gutenberg, they like blocks, where do you see, if they want to add new blocks, where do you see that really ecosystem really placing itself? Like, is that really going to be a theme thing, or do you think we're just going to have an influx of plugins now that are just like, I mean, I would say like page builders, but there's also like plugins that exist just as add-ons to page builders. Like I use Beaver Builder, and then there's what is it called? I have another, the Power Pack, which is like
right, or ultimate add-ons or whatever. There's like
there's like add-ons to Beaver Builder where it gives you different types of modules and different styling. Do you think we're going to see a lot of those kind of companies pop up just for Gutenberg blocks, or is it going to be really confined to the theme realm?
I was just talking a lot, so if James wants to take this first.
Okay, well, I think there will be, but I think it's just really about terminology. So I don't think we're doing anything really new here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of new custom features, right? Everything that could be a block, and I don't want to sound like, oh, it's already all been done, but technically it has. Now, like we were talking earlier, there's no reason why there can't be multiple form companies. There's a huge market, so yeah, you would want to pick your favorite and kind of stick to that. So I think that's going to be how it is with blocks. Meaning there's everything already kind of exists in the plugin form. They're just going to have to kind of convert over to a block format. And everything that really is a block right now is really just stuff that would be in content, like stuff that you would usually throw in as a short code, or use custom meta fields to create like a layout, or custom a custom post type with some custom info. But now instead of having your meta box at the bottom of your content, you might have a meta box that's in the middle of your content that says into your descriptions here. So I don't really think it's not new, it's just a new way of handling it. And I think that that's mostly going to be for the theme developers. The plugin developers that are going to be doing that. Now, theme developers can make blocks, and I think they should definitely convert any of their function over to plugins and then make those blocks in your plugins. But again, I really think it's just going to be like a reformatting of what's already there. I do think there will be some stuff that rises to the top, but for the most part, all your favorite plugins are going to release block versions, and they're just going to kind of just start working, I would assume. But I do think there will be a market for blocks. I mean, I did buy a couple domains just for that reason. Thinking that there might be some good business opportunities over the next couple of years with block conversions or something.
Right. And I certainly see it as very similar to widgets, right? You have the plugins that you use that come with a set of widgets useful to that plugin. And then you have standalone plugins that have just one-off widgets and things like that. I suspect that we'll see something similar for blocks. Seeing like over 50 plugins on a website gives me agita. So I would love to see a way to just like manage that, like these are block plugins or whatever. But that's how I see it. I can definitely see places being block specific plugins like that. Just add the Gutenberg block power pack. And then you have people making one-off blocks that do a specific thing that they would like to do.
Yeah, this is another point where I'm really fearful because I see themes today, not necessarily like things like 2017, but things like, I don't know, I don't even know some of the popular ones, but basically anything you could buy on ThemeForest, right?
Right.
That come out of the box right now with like 23 sliders and things like that. Like, I'm just fearful that you're going to install one of these themes and it's going to be like, here are the 50,000 blocks that we created for you.
Yeah.
And here's the combination of them that creates our beautiful demo. But you're going to have to, figure out, like, it's going to make it even more complex because of that. And it's just, again, it's bloat.
You're right, but hopefully if I understand the new concepts, it means themes should be getting simpler. Ideally a theme will be CSS and some layout packs. All functionality would be in a companion plugin or a core plugin. I know core is working really hard to make a lot of core blocks, and anything that a large majority of the community uses, they're trying to make a block. So it standardizes that. So now if you want a gallery, you could add the gallery, but that's a core function, and your theme now just has to style a gallery. And that gallery that you're styling already has the ability to have, multiple columns or all the features that come with the Gutenberg block of gallery. So ideally, it's going to make these themes smaller, more lightweight, more niche, and not so intrusive. That doesn't mean that will happen, but in theory.
But that's how it is today. Like, galleries exist today, and you still have themes and stuff that are like, nope, use our convoluted gallery instead. And and you could do so much with the existing gallery. Like, one of my not necessarily my favorite, one of my more harder tasks that I've had to do was convert a plugin that we were using for sliders and turn it into like default WordPress gallery, and then include an option in the media panel for, okay, I want this gallery to actually be a slider, so we can get rid of the slider plugin, and then output our slider. I'm just worried that themes are not going to, they're not going to care. They're just going to be like, nope, here's our block instead, and you're going to get, and from the screen you have today, right, like when you add a new block, I know that there's a search feature, but the block is, like the add new block window is pretty small. So I can imagine, like, once there's like a substantial amount of blocks at your disposal, it's going to get really hard to like find the ones that you need, which is kind of worrisome.
Yeah, I think that's when it would be up to, because what should happen is themes should style the default blocks. You have that text column block that should get styled based on how you want text columns to look in your theme. What will actually happen, more likely, is somebody creates a columns block that's more flexible and does exactly what they want to do, and they've styled that and left the text column to the wayside. I think at that point, it's up to the WordPress theme repository on .org, WordPress.com, and Theme Forest and all those, these bigger shops to say, hey, we're gonna rise the good stuff to the top. We're gonna promote this because this is the way you should do it. To Theme Forest's credit, a couple of years ago, they really did change gears and they started removing themes that had like custom post types built into the theme, and they said it has to be a companion plugin. So it will be up to the bigger marketplaces to make sure that the things that are done right are in front of users' faces. And mostly to Roy's concern that it's hard to point to a good case of that to date.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of about to wrap up here. I did want to touch on, so we talked about like businesses who own sites that are going to turn on Gutenberg. I know both of you have clientele. I know, Joe, you're more in like the education space now, but you did at some point, build websites for people. I'm curious, I wrote about this in an article, which I'll link below, but there's a concept that I was thinking about where if you do build websites for people, Gutenberg is actually a good opportunity for you to go back based on our, what we just talked about, go back to your existing clients and say, first, let me educate you what Gutenberg is, and maybe you do that for free, but let me prep your site for Gutenberg. And that's a potential profitable opportunity for you as a company. Have either of you started doing that with your clientele? Have any of your clientele, bit on the bait, basically? Like, have they said okay to any of this? I'm curious how you guys have been feeling that, and what you guys are going to do moving forward.
So I haven't really started that. Again, I'm mostly in the education space now. I do have a few clients who I still do maintenance and stuff like that for, which it will be a good education opportunity. I think my approach will be to say, hey, the WordPress editor is changing. So I will probably not throw the term Gutenberg around unless they specifically ask, hey, I've heard about this, what is it? Because the real thing here is the way I make content is going to change. They don't care what it's called, right? WordPress has always kind of had a naming problem, custom post types. So my approach will just be to say, hey, just to let you know, the WordPress editor experience is changing. Here's a set of videos that I did on it as a client. You'll get them for free. If you want to do a longer consulting or want me to test your site or anything like that, let me know and we can work up a quote. That'll most likely be my approach. Not to be on like a high horse and be like, don't say Gutenberg, but my clients are not going to know what Gutenberg is. So I'm going to say, hey, Gutenberg is coming, and they're going to be like, I don't care. What is
that? Yeah, I'll piggyback off what Joe said. Technically, Gutenberg is just WordPress. It just happens to be the development name we're using as, inside baseball right now, if you will. But once it gets released to core, it will just be WordPress. Like it'll just be its name. Now, technically, no, but I do want to kind of like change the question a little bit. So technically, no, I haven't really done that. I think any new development or a large development that we do, we well built in support for Gutenberg and style those blocks, but I think that's coming. Now, people are talking about like the classic, how long will the classic editor be around? When do I need to start switching over to Gutenberg? Do I need to worry about this? I think there's a life cycle of a site. And I think, this is James talking, this is not Core talking. I think an average life cycle of a site is about 3 years, maybe 5 years pushing it. But I think there's going to be a time frame where the classic editor is still involved, Gutenberg's out, you have WordPress evolving, and you're going to have the life cycle of these sites kind of dying and turning over to a new theme. And I think at that point will be an opportunity to like really help convert to Gutenberg. I don't think your sites are going to break over the next year or even almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half. I don't want to push it, but I think if you just go along the normal life cycle of a site, a lot of these clients will start to get some little updates. You can add some style support. You can do a couple hours to make your current theme work and get away with it until the next big redesign happens, is in my opinion. So I think as long as you don't redesign your site today and don't think about it, you should be fine. When the life cycle of a Gutenberg site comes, I think we'll educate, we'll help support, but really we'll get a lot of these over the next redesign, the next phase builds for a lot of our clients. That it's not going to be as scary as it might feel from the outside right now.
Man, I wish 3 years was the life cycle for an enterprise site.
Yeah.
It's like quadruple that, if that. So I just want to end with, because we're out of time. I know James already mentioned that, James and I and a couple other people are working on some documentation for it. Joe, you have a course. Why don't you go ahead and let people know how they can find that course and what your course is about, because education is important. But before you do that, I should mention Zach's course. So Zach Gordon, who couldn't be on the show today, has a great course on the development, very focused on the development of blocks, and does some like high level education as well. But really his course is really deep into the advanced coding of blocks and how to really use like React and stuff in this whole process. So check out Zach's course. I'll put, I don't know if I'm actually going to put any links in the description, but I'm going to try to put a link. I'll try to remember to put a link.
Gutenberg.course. Gutenberg.course is the URL. Courses.
Yep. We also picked up GutenbergCourses.com, so you could just go there as well.
Nice.
Which
So yeah,
also,
Joe.
yeah.
What course do you have?
Totally. So you can actually find my course there as well at GutenbergCourses.com. Mine is called An Introduction to Gutenberg, and it focuses on using Gutenberg. So in the course, we'll do things like I'll introduce the terminology. I'll do things like take a current page made with the classic editor and convert it to Gutenberg. I'll take a page I made with Beaver Builder and convert it to a rich layout in Gutenberg and things like that. It's on like a 3 or so week update cycle because Gutenberg gets updated pretty frequently. So you can get the course there. I think there is a discount code over at Gutenberg.courses, but if you stumble upon the course through other means, it's actually housed at creatorcourses.com. You can use the code WPCrowd for 30% off. And for end users, I think it's great. For people who are doing enterprise or client stuff, the videos are a great way, I think, to get some ideas for how you can train your clients or send your clients to the course and have them take it and things like that. So that was why I made it. Zach approached me in like December. So both courses are on GutenbergCourses.com.
GutenbergCourses.com. And you said you're on a life cycle about 3 weeks. If someone buys in, do they get automatic up? Like, do they have to pay for the updates?
No, buy it today and get free lifetime updates as long as I update the course. So, if you get it at a deep discount today, you will get lots of great content. I'm going to do like a block library tour where I just like make a video for each block.
Nice.
Yeah, and so, that'll be a really great resource for both users and agencies, I think. So.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to learn about Gutenberg, definitely check out Joe's course. And if you want to level yourself up from that, take Zach's course, because it'll teach you how to like really dive into the deep end of development of blocks and things like that. But yeah, there is some awesome documentation coming that's going to be out soon, I hope. There is a handbook out right now, which kind of gives you a really high level look at some of the code and stuff like that, but it could be better. So that's why we're here. But I'm going to call it there. Thank you guys for joining. I don't think this is going to be our last Gutenberg conversation over the next course of a few months. I think there's a couple other topics I really want to dive into when it comes to Gutenberg. This is just the beginning, really. And I think as it evolves, we're going to have more and more conversations about it. But theme of the show is basically education is going to be key. I guess that's really the theme of life, almost, for a lot of things. But yeah, don't fear Gutenberg. Just learn what it is. Try it out, and I really think it's going to elevate the user experience of WordPress and hopefully elevate WordPress as a whole. So with that, I call it make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or iTunes or whatever, and like us. We're also on Facebook, so if you actually want to be part of our conversation, we have a public Facebook group. I'll go ahead and make sure to link that somewhere as well. But just look for us on Facebook, the WP Crowd, and you can RSVP to these things, so you can just kind of join our conversations and part of our podcast. So I will talk to you guys next week.